Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. Saturday, what a day.
Welcome back to Stepping Out. This is Bob Noonan, your host.
And I'm Roger McDermott.
Well, just thanks for joining us again today. And some very special guests. These guys and gals are dear friends of mine. For about 30 years now, when I was doing the radio show on Salem Radio, I only had 3 people sit in when I went out of town. It was Hal Lindsey, it was Josh McDowell, and it was Jerry and Susanne McClain. And Jerry and Susanne McClain, welcome to the show.
Great to see you again, Bob.
Now, what you didn't get to hear was the soundtrack playing your song, and it goes, Sunday, Monday, happy days, and that was our lead-in. And Jerry and Susan, we're coming up on 50 years on that song right now, right?
Yes, it's 50 years, and it's a really funny story. When we were first starting in the entertainment business, we had a lot of famous, what would be famous people that were recording, making records. And so many of them, the association would be one of them, were having hit records all the time. But, we had a lot of great record contracts with Columbia, Capitol Records, practically every record company in town, but we never had a hit record until Happy Days came along. And so when Happy Days hit, we finally could be in good company with our friends who were having these hit records all over the place. And
Well, it was funny because when you were coming up, I could see in the 50s and 60s you had the Perry Como show, right? And all those
50 years of Happy Days.
50 years of Happy Days. Now, both of you went to UCLA, right?
Yes, we did.
And
That's where we met.
and were you in what were your majors back then?
I was political science, pre-law, heading for law school.
Oh, well, we'll have another show with you just talking about the political dynamics of today. But Suzanne, what was your major there?
I was music and education, and I got to do exactly what I was trained for. I wanted to teach kids music, and I wanted to be a singer. So you know what? God was good.
Well, you've been teaching Jerry for years.
I know.
Is
Not
he,
a good.
is he out of timeout yet?
He came out. He has permanent.
Well,
They moved him.
so
him
you
out.
guys probably, and you were also involved, weren't you, with Campus Crusade for Christ at the time at UCLA?
Yes, I was involved very early on with Crusade, and I was on the musical staff, and that's really kind of how I got my start, really. Frank Obian, who was the director of international ministries, got me started in the Campus Crusade for Christ Quartet. We were in the spring sing at UCLA, and actually the spring sing at UCLA turned out to be quite something for us, didn't it, Suzanne?
They had judges for that event, like John Williams and Randy Sparks and people in the music business. And we won sweepstake with about 15 minutes rehearsal. We had the words to the song written in our hand. And so we just wowed them with our personalities. And the judges said, "You kids are terrific. I think you got something there. Keep it up."
And Randy Sparks didn't try to get you in the New Christy Minstrels?
No, but he did later let us come and perform at Ledbetter's, which was his club right there in West LA. And that's where,
John
Denver was,
Oh,
and the
yes.
Backstreet Boys and all those kids.
You know,
Steve Martin.
I was talking to Barry McGuire yesterday, and his first hit was Green Green. He wrote with Randy Sparks.
Yeah, that's right. He's very talented and could spot talent. And so that was the beginning for us.
Now, how did you two meet?
We met because Jerry came to the sorority house and said, we've got a group signed up for spring sing, but we don't have kids singing. So would you and your sister want to be in the group with us and a couple of guys with banjos and guitars? And we said, well, sure, what are we going to sing? Just come over to the fraternity house and we're going to teach us all a song. And that's what happened, literally. And we passed what do they call it? The audition.
Yep.
And they said, you're
Yeah.
in the finals. And so I was in the Hollywood Bowl. And that was the beginning. And, God had plans for us for sure.
Well, you guys had done a lot of TV stuff, back in the day. Excuse me, but how did the break come? Because you were with, it was McClain and Pratt that did Happy Days, wasn't it?
Pratt and McClain, yeah, was our partner there for years. But before that, Bob, I would say that our big hit was really at Spring Sing, and they said, like Suzanne said,
Uh-huh.
they said, you kids need to stay together. And so we did something that our parents didn't like. We dropped out of school and we started singing really at Disneyland. And we
Okay.
a couple of summers at Disneyland, and Disney was a very important part of our success, Disneyland. In fact,
They had a stage in Tomorrowland, right?
that's where we sang, and Walt himself came by several times and heard us. And actually, the last time he came, he sent back after that all Mickey Mouse watches for each one of us. Which today I gave one of mine to my grandson, and the original Mickey Mouse watches today are quite expensive.
That'd be very valuable to have anything original from the 50s and 60s at Disneyland.
But we became a opening act for lots of stars, and we were open for Dean Martin, Don Rickles, Ronan Martin. We were
Yeah.
Mother's Brothers. We really had an amazing career, and then things kind of slowed down, and the kids, one wanted to go to law school, and one wanted to go someplace else, move back to Denver. So we pared the group down to just the four of us, Pratt and Jerry and my twin sister and I. And so then we put a show together and we opened for more people in different places. It got a commercial, that ran across the country for months. And I don't know, did recording and then, got a call, would we like to sing Happy Days? And
Yeah, one night.
we didn't even know what Happy Days was. We were on the road traveling. It's a brink of the 50s, but it's in the 70s.
Well, I'll give you some other names, Bob. One night at our house in Beluga Lake, North Hollywood, Mike and Stormy O'Mardian came over to our house
Right.
and said, "You're going to be singing Happy Days theme from the TV show tomorrow." And I said, "What?" Again, like Suzanne said, we were on the road. We had never even seen an episode of Happy Days. So the next morning, we went into the studio, recorded Happy Days, and then the day after that, we heard our record.
We were driving down Hollywood Boulevard, and there was a big, some station was playing and said, "Here's the latest hit from the TV show, Happy Days. It's Pratt McClain." I thought we were going to drive off the road. I mean, it was it's a movie. There was a movie made about the same thing, about a hit record and when it happened. So,
Do you know that
that was the beginning.
the original song they dumped for the ones that you did?
Yeah.
Because they had one before that, right?
Well, it was just a 20-second lead-in to the show.
Well, that
Oh, okay.
It was never a full song.
yeah, the original theme song from the TV show Happy Days was Bill Haley's "Rock Around the Clock."
Right.
And
Right.
then after that, there was a studio group that did a 30-second version of it.
Like the promo for the TV show. Yeah. And then,
Did you guys ever go on American Bandstand?
yeah, we did that. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
With Dick Clark.
Dick Clark is one of my favorite. Tell me he was a great guy.
He was a great guy.
Really loved by everybody. He was very, very bright, very personable. Made you feel just terrific did everything to make you come off looking great.
So you guys were traveling, doing your best. We know that musicians, unless they have big hits, don't make a lot of money. You're eating top ramen and doing that kind of stuff. So when you got the hit, how did it change your lives?
Well, as far as money is concerned, it really didn't change our lives that much because we were one of the few acts that were making good money before Happy Days.
Okay.
We did the TV shows with Richie Pryor, George Carlin,
Jonathan.
Flip Wilson?
So we
Wow.
we're doing quite well. So when Happy Days came along, the only thing we lacked was the hit record. And like I said, Bob, and it is so very, I don't know, to me, it's just remarkable that 50 years later, we are still getting royalties from Happy Days. And that in itself is remarkable.
Wow.
Well, you had a bunch of other songs you guys did. I think didn't I hear you do Devil with a Blue Dress and some of those songs too?
Devil with a Dress was also a hit for us. And yeah.
One of the things I love about you two, and we were just got through doing another podcast with a dear friend of mine, John Lynch, who wrote the book True Faced. And you guys went through some dark nights because the book you wrote, Jerry and Susanne McClain, was called Happy Days, Dark Nights. And what I loved about what you guys did is we all sin, we all fall short of the glory, but there's the grace of God. And when you guys took the mask off and said, look what I struggled with, you have no idea how many people you helped.
Well, that's typical of the Lord, isn't it? Turning a terrible situation into a victory. About, I don't know, a couple of years after Happy Days was released for us, I got into a devastating cocaine problem. And cocaine in those days was God's way of telling you you have too much money.
It was called the fuel of Hollywood back then.
Oh, it was the thing for Hollywood. And so, and the record companies and the record studios, everybody had cocaine. So I got involved in it. Suzanne was never involved in it. I was involved in it. And we really went through some tough times. Isn't that right, honey?
And she really did. And I remember thinking at the time, our life prior to his cocaine was really a pretty amazing life. And so nobody would choose to have to back up, give up all of that, and go back to square one and start all over again and follow what God had for us. But that's what we did. And I think that every time that we would share our story with people, they would say, well, you should write a book. This is amazing. I can think of my friends whose kids are on drugs. They would love to hear your story. And I said, I really have no intention of reliving this nightmare of drugs in our lives. But, I said, who knows what'll happen? And sure enough, Hal Lindsey called us and said, I know I believe in you and I have a publishing company. And if you want to write your book, I will publish it. And he said, we'll put promotion behind you because I think it's a worthy story to tell. And so that got the book on its feet. And then we began doing TV, different kind of ministries of sharing our story.
Well, you guys know, we just lost Hal last month. God bless him. I so loved the guy. He was so real and honest. But, Jerry, I think you told me the first time you did it, you're backstage. I think it was, what was it, Fleetwood Mac's Rumors, and Clapton and all those musicians were there, and somebody started passing the coke around. Is that how it went?
Yeah, that's about how it went, Bob. And, I just, I tell you, I marvel. Sometimes, in fact, we were just talking about this today. I was asking Suzanne some questions about our past. We're going to have to go back and read our book which is funny, but yet it's the truth. There are a lot of stories in our book that we have to only remember when we reread some of the book, Happy Days and Dark Nights. But it's a great story of victory in Jesus and how forgiveness.
and starting over and, God taking us through dark times. I said to Jerry when we were through this whole drug thing and it was over, we were on the other side. I said, I would never have chosen to go through this, but what we became other side of it is something that God couldn't have taught us any other way except for us to lose everything and then start all over by ways and turn our focus from being great stars in the success to really just sharing our lives with people to help.
You know, Suzanne, I know you probably had many women
Yeah.
come to you and their husbands are struggling with some addiction, be it coke or
Yeah.
speed or pornography, whatever it is. And what is your encouragement to them? Because you stuck it out, and there must have been sticking it out because of some, obviously, faith and trust in God.
Yeah.
And what he was going to do, right?
Yes. And I remember that a counselor at Church on the Way said to me, you will not be the first wife whose husband has an addiction. You will not be the first wife who has been totally lied to, and that everything that you thought was true about your husband may not be. You won't be the first, but you could be one of those wives who says, I remember the husband that I married. I remember the love he had for the Lord. I remember the love he had for me. I remember that those things were not taken away or pushed aside, but that person will come back because he has such a strong faith in the Lord, and he just got sidetracked by lots of, things that to him he thought was success. And so I chose to stay, not to run. And I would have taken our son, who was 6 years old at the time, and said, we're out again. But you know what? That would have been,
The devil would have gotten the victory.
yeah, the devil would have gotten the victory, not the Lord. So I thought, well, you know what? That's worth fighting for. That's worth fighting for. Jerry grew up in a divorced home like we've done. And so to this day, I know there's still pain. I know that God got us through.
Well, Stepping Out is what Roger and I have run for 20-some years. It was the book I wrote on recovery. And, it's 12-step, but it's got all the scripture in it that validates each step. And, Roger is coming up on, 30 years, Roger?
I'm in my 28th, well into my 29th, as they say.
29th year of sobriety. And this guy helps more people. But you know what? Tell her a little bit about your story. You had left your wife, and then when you went back and you got sober, what happened?
So, my wife and I got married by Chuck Smith at Calvary Chapel in Costa Mesa in 1974. And I was in outside sales after I graduated from college. And my drinking started to take its toll. And married in 74, in 1985, I abandoned my family. I had 2 beautiful daughters, a gorgeous wife, and I just walked away from them. From 1985 to 1996, 3 DUIs, filed bankruptcy, moved back with my mom and dad. I gave away everything that I had, including my family. I traded my family and everything for booze, drugs, rock and roll, all that, until I was I was actually trying to stay out of jail. And I was in an alternative sentencing program December 1st of 1996. I never drank since then. But I had that moment of clarity where I couldn't find anybody to blame for my consequences. And so I realized and believed and accepted the fact that I was the problem. So now what am I going to do about it? And I already knew Jesus. I was the prodigal son, 100%. I left the father. I spent all my inheritance. I did exactly what the prodigal son did in the Bible. And then I came back, and I've been involved with ministry at my church, and I'm an elder here. And my wife died of alcoholism partly as a result of my being abandoning them. But I'm close with my daughters and my grandkids. And
But wait a minute, he went home and took care of her.
I did.
Restored the marriage
I did.
and took care of her.
I went back home and I loved her the best I could do while she was fighting the disease. And frankly, Jesus just took her home because she couldn't do it down here anymore, so he took her home. I've had on 3 different occasions, 3 different people in my life have dreams and or visions from my wife, Debbie, who appeared to them and told them to tell me that she loved me from heaven. So, and every time I tell that story, I tear up because it's not like I deserve that, but that's the love of Christ working through my wife and me, and that's what I get to share that with other people.
So I don't know if you remember this, Jerry and Suzanne, but you're in the studio at Salem down in Long Beach, and I'm interviewing you two.
Yep.
And because I had worked with addicts for years, I got to that point where I said, well, you lost everything. And I knew you were doing coke, and coke can get pretty expensive, especially if you're doing, 3-4 grams a day, it can go pretty quick. And I said, if you were broke, didn't you owe some dealers money? Do you remember that? You guys went back and wrote another chapter before you published
About the story about the guys,
Drug dealer.
drug
That
dealer,
bumped
yeah.
into you. Yeah, sure. We're
it. Yeah, where you came to pick up the money, and there was somebody sitting on
There
your
was
porch.
somebody,
Who was that? And he said, every time I came over, you had a huge guy doing your lawn, and you never had a lawn guy.
no.
I don't think we could afford a lawn guy when we're barely making it. Yeah.
And so they said, you're going to flee from here. This is a house protected by God. And so the story goes, I ran into the drug dealer again at a drugstore, actually. And he came up to me, and I was kind of, cautious about him doing that. And I said, I'm sorry, I know that I owed you some money. And I knew that I did. And he said, well, I came by to pick it up. But you have these 2 guys in front that told me to leave, but this is house protected by God. And so he said, I couldn't leave fast enough. Now, I can tell you right now, I did not have 2 people in front of my house. I couldn't even afford manure, much less a gardener. So glad you brought that up, Bob, because that's a typical example of what I'm talking about. With today, Suzanne and I have got to reread portions of our book we've kind of forgotten, and that's a great and true story.
Well, God sends his angels. It says that we need to beware. We entertain angels unaware,
Angels unaware.
right?
Yep.
And I'm thinking that, boy, you two, and the prayers of the righteous availeth much, Jerry, and your wife was praying. And if she had Stormy O'Mardian praying for you, then you're in trouble.
Yeah. In fact, one day, this was so funny. She had put out a new book called The Power of a Praying Wife. And so I had picked it up at Hobby Lobby or one of the stores where her book was being sold. And I started picking food. And I started reading, and I said, Carrie, I want you to read this. This is our story in her book. I said, I don't recall her ever sending us a thing to fill out that says, okay.
She didn't get a release from you?
And so he said, well, we said, it's in there. And if it ministers to somebody, that's great. So we've always laughed about that.
Are the O'Mardians still around, or?
Yeah, they're in Nashville.
Okay.
We're in Nashville. I think Mike's disillusioned with the music business there now. And I think Stormy's, down to writing her last book. She's she's written The Power of Everybody, the partner, the power of the wife, the power of the husband, So I think that just they're ready to and just enjoy without having pressure, or having to do or come up with either books or songs or whatever. Every now and then,
Now,
sends
after,
Jerry a sweet
go-
email or text or calls her, and so we're grateful for
well, you guys played with Michael Amardian, didn't you, at one
the
time?
keyboard for a while, and
Yeah.
but Michael Michael marched to his own drum, and he was always being called to do things, and he would say, I can't go on the road with you guys. I have to do this. I'm committed to this session, and blah blah. And so, you know what
Yeah, we stayed close with the Amardians through the years. And they're great pals.
Yeah. Well, at our age, Roger and I are 72, and, I don't move as fast as I used to and do all that. And then, we've moved up to Arrowhead, so I thought I would retire. But after about 4 days, I can only watch so much news, read so much, go on hikes, and I'm bored. I got to get down here and work. And that's just, there's a book, what's her name? I'll think of it in a minute. She wrote a book, There's No Place for Christians to Retire. And she wasn't, what she was really saying is from ministry,
Yeah, right.
and we all have a ministry, don't we?
We do. No matter what age, no matter what we've been through, no matter what. Last night we were watching Sheila Walsh.
Yes.
Was on the Takeaways with that young man who I can't remember his name. Last night they were listening to.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were just sharing that everything that's happened to them has happened because somebody made a call to them. Somebody said, would you like to do this? Would you want to be a part of that? And so they both were sharing how nothing in their careers ever was planned. They could seek it. God opened the doors for them. And just you, Bob, gave us the chance to host on Fridays. You know what? That was a wonderful experience for us. And we're so grateful that you got to call on us to help fill in when you needed a break.
Well,
So-
you guys were great doing it. And, getting back to Sheila, I just love Sheila Walsh because you know what? She bears her soul, and when people hear her story, they're helped.
Yeah.
And I remember she told me one time, we were sitting in the studio, and she said, when she literally had the psychological breakdown on the 700 Club, they took her straight from there to a psych facility.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, Bob, I get up the next morning, and I'm in a bathrobe with slippers trying to find coffee, and I'm in a psych ward.
Wow.
And she said, I was in a terrible place.
Yeah.
Do you know the only Christian that ever called her when she was there?
Who?
Who ever contacted her? It's sad to say it wasn't anyone from the 700 Club. It was a man by the name of Billy Graham who said, honey, we love you, and when you get out, you're going to come stay with us.
Wow.
Is that amazing?
Speaking of the Graham family, on that, one of those shows that you allowed us to do the hosting, we had
Yes.
Franklin Graham on the show
Right.
with another guy, the name of
Harvest Crusade.
Harvest Crusade.
Great glory.
Make glory.
So we had it this.
And you did that show down at the Salvation Army,
Yes.
their award show.
That's exactly what a good memory.
Yeah.
We did, and I got a copy of that somewhere. But what was really funny about that, Bob, is that during a commercial break, Franklin and Ray Glory worked up their version of our hit record, Happy Day.
Well, they were sitting in the chorus.
Yeah. So when we came back after the commercial break, they wanted to do something for us that we Warren County, the Frankie Graham and Greg Laurie have sang their version of our hit record, Happy Days.
Okay. Well, we didn't
Well,
know.
I know that you interviewed each of them separately.
Yeah.
But I think you did Franklin first. So Franklin's, putting his tux on, and then he's making, he's trying to crack up Greg Laurie. Now you see these two giant men, and he's trying to crack up, and Greg wasn't happy about that.
Well, we didn't realize they were such close friends, and that was really wonderful. But got a chance to interview them. Yeah, that was great.
Well, listen, we're going to wrap it up here, but to those that are struggling, Jerry, and the biggest problem, I think, is that we think we get saved and then there's no more sin. The problem is we just hide the sin better, because we all sin, we all fall short. And what would your message to those who are struggling in the dark? They know they have faith in Christ, but they've lost hope, and they're living a lie. What would you say to them?
Well, can I use some harsh language?
Sure, we got editors.
Okay. Well, one night, Bob, when I was right in the middle of my cocaine addiction, I was in the bathroom, and I looked in the bathroom mirror, and I said, "You are a dumb shit." And I looked in that mirror, and I said it again and again. And so that next day, I marched back with my relationship with Jesus Christ, and I promised myself that I would rather die rather than do any more drugs. And that's what I said to the Lord. I said, "I'm here. I'm ready."
Jerry, did you ever figure out, because a lot of times we walk with Christ and we forget his promises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And be it pornography or coke, what was the void you were trying to fill with the cocaine that only God could fill?
Boy, I can't answer that, because there was no way in the world that I should have gotten involved with cocaine, because I was a kid that when I went through UCLA in the fraternities, I never did participate in any type of beer busts or.
He was the chap and the social chairman of the fraternity. Now that's an odd combo.
But I really promised God that I was going to come back to my ways of worshiping Him. And of course, I had Jack Hayford, who was my pastor, and one of the two people that wrote for my book, the other one being, of course, Hal Lindsey. And at the time, Susanne and I were going to Church on the Way, and that was a great inspiration and help to me.
Yeah.
But I had to have that. If you're on a road of destruction, in order to get off of that road, you got to have some support.
Well, bear up one another. That's, love one another as I've loved you. And, we were just talking the last hour about that wonderful thing in the Gospel of John where Jesus says, "Just as the Father loves me, so also do I love you." Unpack that. Exactly as the Father loves me, I love you. And the truth is, if people are out there doing drugs, alcohol, porn, you know what? Jesus can't love them more than he already does, and he's not going to love them less. It's by grace we're saved through faith, not of our works. If our works can't get us to heaven, our works aren't going to keep us out, but we're going to miss out on good stuff if we keep doing it.
Yep. We're going to miss out on great blessings that God has for us.
Well, listen, we got to wrap up here. I love you too. I love you so much, and I've missed you. Let me know when you're down in this area. Rod, you want to say anything in closing?
It's a pleasure meeting you. I mean, I frankly grew up with listening to Happy Days. Not literally, but what was it on for 20 plus years? So that song played all the time.
Yeah, still on.
And I love meeting you guys, and I love your story.
Well, get this,
Thank-
Roger. Jerry was telling me that that song was played even in Japan. Like, they would have some sumo wrestler do the Fonzie's voice, but the song was in English, right?
Right, right. In the same place.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So everywhere in the world. Did that song go #1 here?
Went #1 on the Billboard charts, and somewhere in the world, it's still on charts today, 50 years later.
Jerry and Susanne McClain, Happy Days, wrote the book Happy Days, Dark Nights. Where can they get that book?
Yeah, Jerry Happy Days at gmail.com.
So for Bob Noonan,
And Roger McDermott, it's great meeting you. God bless you guys.
this is Stepping Out. We'll see you next time. God bless. Bye-bye.
Hello, sunshine, goodbye, rain. She's wearing my school ring on her chain. She's my steady, I'm her man. I'm gonna love her all I can. Days on, won't you be mine? Days on, please be mine. Gonna cruise her around the town, show everybody what I found. Rock and roll with all my friends.